This is Mid-Atlantic Women in Agriculture's Wednesday webinar, Hiring and Firing Practices. Our presenter today is Ashley Ellickson, Legal Specialist, University of Maryland. A special thank you to our sponsors, Mid-Atlantic Farm Credit, Delaware Department of Agriculture, and Maryland Department of Agriculture. All downloads mentioned during this presentation can be found at our website. And since this presentation is an archived presentation, questions can be sent directly to the presenter. Her contact email is provided. Thanks for listening.
So today I will be talking about hiring and firing practices, and as I go along here it'll make a little bit more sense as to what the overview will be. And I'm part of the Agricultural Law Education Initiative. In case anyone hasn't heard of us before, we are a collaboration between the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law, College of Agriculture and Natural Resources at University of Maryland College Park, and we work together to create education and outreach for producers in the legal realm. So our website is up there, our Twitter, Facebook, and our email. And this is just a disclaimer. Although I am an attorney, today's presentation is simply educational in nature. If you do need an attorney for your specific situation, we can definitely direct you to someone that can help you. And this is the Maryland Risk Management Education blog we do in conjunction with crop insurance. We post about 3 or 4 times a week on different legal topics. So you can feel free to subscribe to that, and an email will be sent to you about every day, I think Tuesday through Thursday, Friday-ish. So feel free to visit our website there. And then this is just a thank you to Shannon Farrell and Tiffany Lashmet, who have helped contribute to this presentation today and we've collaborated with. So the overview. I'm going to start with this hypothetical farm case. So a dairy milking 350 cows has 5 employees. Added 2 employees to help with milking. Each applicant was interviewed and the owner called references given. The farm does not have an employee handbook, written policies, or contracts with these employees. The owner notices one of the new hires arrives early and leaves late after his shift is over. About a month later, the owner gets a call from a TV reporter in the nearest big city wanting a comment on the YouTube video being released that afternoon by PETA depicting animal abuse on his farm. Within hours, the farmer has hundreds of requests for interviews and comments. The sheriff has arrived. Death threats are pouring in. His home phone and cell phones of the owner, the wife, and his children. The owner goes online and views a horrific video depicting his employees striking the cows, poking them with pitchforks, kicking them in the ribs, and so on. The next day, the farmer fires those employees abusing the animals in the video. He stumbles through a statement that left him looking confused and defensive in front of the media, and within hours, the farmer's milk buyers have canceled their contract. So in a nutshell, the farmer's world and the family business that he's been building for generations is crumbling around him. Interviews with remaining employees indicate that they had not seen this type of behavior. The videographer befriended the 2 employees as soon as he arrived. Circumstantial proof of the videographer encouraging and even paid these 2 employees to take the abusive actions have been found, and the videographer disappears, never to be seen or heard from again, and his references turn out to be false. So the story I just told is something that has happened across many agriculture industries. As you can see, this slide here depicts, I believe it's 2011 and 2013 statistics on these undercover videos released by sector. So as you can see, poultry is surpassing everyone. My guess would be that hogs and dairies have also increased since about this slide has been done. So very unfortunate case. So today, you've heard the old adage, the best defense is a good offense, right? Most of us have heard this if we played any sort of sport or been in any sort of group setting. So the goal today is to give you the tools to put you on the offensive in your operation. So why the offensive? Well, unfortunately, you can't unring the bell. Once this harm's been done, there's nothing you can do to change what's already been put out there. So This will hopefully change the hypothetical around as far as when the farmer has to deal with either the employees that acted in the bad manner or the media. So where are we going? Today we're going to talk about the possible legal theories that you can use if you're on the defensive. So if you're the farmer in the hypothetical, what can you do? And then the limitations with those. Employment law, your offense, so things that you can have in your back pocket, and what you can do before something like this happens. Again, more tools to have in your toolkit so something like this doesn't happen to you. Legal theories. I'm sure many of us at this point have heard of these ag-gag laws. We like to call them farm protection statutes, but I think most of us throughout the media have heard ag-gag laws used more frequently. So far we have 9 bills passed, and I think the arrows are pointing, I think this was an older slide. North Carolina did pass, and so did, is that Utah? Yes, they also had passed. And then the bills failed. So as you can see, there have been about 18 bills that have been offered up, and none of those have actually passed. So common provisions of farm protection laws. Prohibition on trespassing to video an ag operation. They prohibit on seeking employment with intent to video an ag operation. They prohibit seeking employment using false information. And there is a requirement in at least one that I'm aware of, I believe it's Missouri, that all animal abuse be reported to authorities within 48 hours. And then there are also criminal violations within these farm protection laws. So this is just a basic overview of what some of them use. They're potentially, however, unconstitutional. Federal district courts in Idaho found Idaho's to be unconstitutional. That state is actually appealing that ruling to the Ninth Circuit. Utah's, Wyoming's, and North Carolina's are also being challenged, with North Carolina's being the most recent. It was actually filed back in January of this year. So time will tell, but it's looking like these may not actually be constitutional in nature. Other legal theories. How can farms prosecute the spies or the undercover investigators or the bad employees? Well, you could sue for fraud. However, it would not affect employees using their actual credentials, so they actually didn't lie about who they were, and not lying in the hiring process. So they could have said who they were, so it wouldn't actually be able to be used against those employees. You could use trespass. However, absent fraud, it requires a statute, which not all states have. You could sue for breach of duty of loyalty, which is also unfortunately vague and a common law doctrine, so also very hard to prove. Conspiracy is another theory you could sue under, and again, it's very difficult and complex to prove conspiracy. One of the main issues with conspiracy is the employee in the hypothetical, let's say he's part of an activist group and you try to link him back to the activist group, it would be very hard to show that conspiracy if you don't have any documentation. And a lot of the activist groups don't keep logs of their members. Something else you could sue for, defamation. But it better be right or you won't likely succeed in the trial. So truth has to be a defense. So the problem here is that if the video, what happened in the video happened, it wasn't something that was untruthful. So you couldn't actually sue for defamation. Further, the principle to bring a lawsuit is very expensive. It's often at least $200,000 to go to trial. And who wants to take that extra $200,000 they might have, if we have that, to go to trial? No one. Videographers are frequently judgment proof. They're usually broke from another state. They're young. They're just there because they feel passionate about something. So it could also be hard. And hard to get proof to obtain judgment against larger activist groups. So like I said before, it's often hard to find that formal tie. Proof of the conspiracy is very difficult to show, and often the employees volunteered for the activity. So there may be no payment actually going on or nothing that's linking them back to that activist group. So what's the better solution? Hire good people. Develop good hiring practices. Develop that employee handbook that the farmer in the hypothetical didn't have. And follow those always. Make sure if you instill procedures that you follow them. Hiring practices. These are just a few ideas we're going to go through about items that you can instill. Okay, so moving on. So you can ask about group affiliations on the employee application. That's completely fine. And that will enable you to see if there's any red flags you should be looking for. And then ask for prior names or aliases. This will be important for the background check that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Maybe the person you hire goes by Bob, his name's actually William, or things like that. You can ask for all names. Maybe they had a name change somewhere down the line. You want to know all of them. And then make sure to check references if, of course, potential employee grants you that permission. You must have permission to check with the references. And then you can ask those references for other references. So if they can't give you a whole lot of information or they don't know, you can ask if there's someone else in the company or the place of work that you can talk to. And then another huge thing to be looking at is social media pages. You can ask your employees for all of their social media contact information. So if they have a different name on Facebook or on Twitter, what's their Twitter handle? And let them know that you'll be checking those out. That is completely fine. And that'll also help put you on the lookout for something that might look inconsistent with what you're looking for in an employee. Adopt and make known policies against cell phone use on operation premises. So whether that's either no cell phones, everyone must leave them in a locker or in a vehicle, or they can't use them, but they can have them in their pocket in case of emergency, whatever that may be, make sure that you either adopt those and make everyone know them. Adopt and make known policies requiring immediate reporting of animal cruelty, abuse, contamination, and the like. So I have a question, Angela. Employee application state specific. Not that I'm aware of. Can they decide not to give social media names? They can, but you can definitely, it's legal to ask them for those names. So there are some things you can ask, and we'll go through that here in a second, which I think we all kind of know from common sense, but we'll go over that in just a second. But absolutely, you can ask. And then consider using a non-disclosure agreement in addition to your employment contract. So a non-disclosure protects your business information from being released to the public or a third party. So basically it's whatever happens on farm Y stays on farm Y is what the NDA can do for you. And then use your longtime trusted employees as your own eyes during the day-to-day operations. So use those trusted employees, whether they're your family members or someone that has worked on the farm since the beginning of time or one of your partners. Make sure that you're all aware that maybe there's someone to be looking out at specifically, or that you keep your eyes and ears open for something that might be inconsistent with what your beliefs are. Have compliance training on your farm, policies and procedures to ensure that information is well understood by your workforce. Consider also having a handbook of these policies and make sure each employee has a copy. So if you're going to have an employee handbook, make sure that every employee that walks through the door, whether it's in the middle of the season or the middle of the year, maybe even it's not ideal, that they're given one and then somehow that it's been gone over with them, whether you have a meeting as a group every time someone new comes on board, or the beginning of the season, the end of the season, whatever works for your operation. So lastly, consider doing your own undercover investigating to ensure all employees are following policies and procedures, as well to ensure your operation is in full compliance with all regulations. So whatever that may be, if you need to put up cameras, if you need to put up motion detectors, things like that, or do your own undercover investigating. If you're on the operation every day, then your eyes and ears are there. So be on the lookout yourself. So, and use Google. and background checks in Maryland and Delaware. So if there's any other states on here, feel free to email me and I can send you the websites that you can check for free. So this background check is for Maryland, and this is a free background check. It's the website up at the top, the casesearch.courts.state.md.us, and all you have to do, this site will come up. You'll click on the I have read, understood, and agree to the terms, continue, and then you'll go to the next page and you get to put in the names of the potential employee. And then down here, it'll say, let's see, no, that's not what I wanted. Sorry, I'm trying to use the arrow. I guess it's not going to work. All right, so down below it says party type. I always do default all. The case type, it has civil, criminal, traffic, civil citation. I would just do all. And then whether it's circuit court or district court, I would just do both and see what comes up. And again, this is another reason why you want to know the entire name or all the aliases that a possible individual had. So my maiden name was Newhall, so I put that in there because maybe something will come up under my name since I haven't been Alexon very long. So things like that. And then this is easy to use and free. All right, and then this is for Delaware. This is Delaware's free background check. So again, there's the website up at the top, and then it'll walk you through how to do it. You just say, yes, I agree to the disclaimer, you accept, and then you go ahead and type in the person and case type search. So a little bit different, but all similar. And here you can even look up company name. All right, so moving on to warning signs. Okay, so monitoring social media. We're back to social media. So you want to make sure that you ask them for these names, their aliases under each social media account they may have. Hopefully they're forward with you. And then keep an eye on it. Constantly check it. So some warning signs: seeking employment below skill level. So if they're an accountant and all of a sudden they want to come harvest produce, something kind of looks out of line there. They haven't had any experience in that sort of line of work, but maybe they've had a change of heart, but also it could be something that should kind of put you on notice. And you might want to just ask them, like, why would you like to do this work if you're an accountant? That's perfectly fine to ask. What entices them to be there? Previous jobs are out of character with what they're seeking. Again, you could use the same example. Why are they switching from, a business type job to, now they want to, shovel manure? That seems kind of out of line. Again, it could be that that's just what they want to do. However, it could be something that you want to pay attention closer to. And then volunteering for work with no pay, that's a big one. And then out of state and or newly obtained driver's license. A lot of the undercover investigations have shown that the person that has taken the video has more than likely had an out-of-state driver's license or newly obtained driver's license. So that's why we put that on here as a warning sign. They may seek short-term work, asking questions about security and or time schedules. They just seem a little bit more curious than the average farm worker. And then volunteering for jobs before, after normal business hours, arriving early, staying late, and volunteering for less desirable jobs that involve contact with animals. So again, for some reason they want to go clean out where the hogs lie all day, and that's like the job they really want to do after work. Kind of seems weird because that kind of seems like the least desirable job to me. So that could put you on notice too. Like, why do they want to be there around the animals? Why are they wanting that job? Because that's like the worst job on the farm. They mingle with upper management often. They want to be around you. They want to be around the people that are in charge. They're frequently seen in places their job should not take them. So that's something that you can definitely put in your employee handbook. Where employees should and shouldn't be and where they're allowed to be, where they have access to. And you can have signs up about that. Employees want to see places because they've always wanted to see them. They're curious. That's interesting. So again, just some things to put you on notice. All right, employee handbooks. Every time I do give this talk, I have some people say they have employee handbooks, but majority don't. So if you don't feel bad. Um, it's very, very rare to have this in agriculture industry. It's just not something that producers are used to having. As technology changes, as the economy changes, so do agriculture practices. So in today's environment, this isn't something that's very common. So do not feel bad if you don't have one. But today we're going to walk through one because this is something we do suggest having to protect yourself. Let's see. All right. So in your employee handbook or contract, you can have some of these requirements. So require that employee review and sign acknowledgement of all written practices. So if you have that employee handbook or just a one-page sheet saying these are our policies here, have them sign it. Put that in a file. So, that will help you when you unfortunately have to go fire that person or if you have to protect yourself in a way. Explicitly require strict adherence to best practices for animal handling. Explicitly prohibit abusive behavior, and then you want to constantly enforce it. So you don't want to treat one employee differently than another. If you let one employee get off with bad policy acting, you don't want to all of a sudden start treating the other one differently. That you want to be consistent. You want to instill these policies and then follow them. Require that any abuse be immediately reported to their supervisor and owner. So again, something you can put out that employee handbook and the contract and that one-page sheet of policies, whatever it is that works for your operation. Cell phones must be left in vehicles or lockers. Cameras may only be used with written permission from the owner. Again, these are ideas and each operation is going to be different. So this may not work for you, but it may work for your neighbor. Just take it with a grain of salt. Provide that any photos or videos are property of the company. Prohibit use of social media while on duty. And this is important too with all the live streaming that's now possible. You can literally take a video and it's online at the same time. So everyone knows what you're doing exactly at that time. Consent to notify of all social media accounts and monitoring of the same. So final word on handbook and policies. Develop with the help of an HR professional and attorney, if possible. Train and refresh employees. So again, like I talked about before, if you're going to have a new employee somewhere in the middle of the season, it may not be ideal to have another employee training, but it's going to benefit you. So, maybe take 30 minutes after the day that day, maybe provide a snack, and everyone goes through the handbook again, or the policies. Consistently and fairly apply them. Failing to do so can cause more damage than they prevent. So again, like I said before, if you're going to have a policy, make sure you enforce it. Don't all of a sudden enforce it just because the person that violated the policy is someone you don't necessarily like, but you let everyone else get away with it. It's not going to help you. So make sure if you have the policies, continue to follow them and enforce them on everyone equally. Employee training. Develop policies for animal care and handling. So general animal handling, dealing with downed cattle, euthanasia, procedures, medical treatment, necessity, and then have recurring mandatory trainings on these policies. Again, all right. So, employee training, ensure employees have tools and equipment identified in the policies, whatever that may be. Keep long-time trusted employees on the lookout for suspicious activity. Conduct your own undercover investigation to ensure best practices are being followed. So be the eyes and the ears on the farm. Most owners or managers are on the farm all day, every day, and know every single employee. So be on the lookout. Now we're going to talk about firing practices. But Ashley, isn't it just? Slightly, but there's still some legal considerations to firing. So let's walk through those. So I talked about earlier questions you can and cannot ask, or I was basically referring to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So this prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, and age. So these are questions or these are issues where you can't fire someone based on this list here. So for example, Bad example. John, you are fired because you are a Mississippian and you stole $200. I cannot fire John because he's a Mississippian. However, I can fire John because he stole $200. It's pretty straightforward, but you're going to want to document that if that's the issue. We'll talk about that here briefly too. So at-will employment versus contract. At-will employment means the employment is at the will of the employer and the employee. So typically at-will employment is for an indefinite period of time, and either party can terminate this relationship regardless of the reason, again, unless it would violate another law, like this, the civil rights law we just went over. So it can't be because of race, age, religion, things like that. Contract employee, employment contract can also overrule firing for no cause. So if the contract is for a period of time, so example 2 years or for the growing season or for a certain amount of months through harvest, whatever it may be, then the employer gives up the ability to terminate the employee for no cause during that time period. You're going to have a reason. Contract and handbooks. Both can limit termination to when the job performance is unsatisfactory or breaches terms in employment contract or employee handbook. So limiting is a two-edged sword. It gives the employee more security. It can potentially require you to do employee evaluations and can require you to follow the handbook. But isn't that why it exists? If you're going to have those policies in the handbook, you're going to want to enforce them, which can benefit you as well. So you have a reason to fire. So terminating, because you may get sued for wrongful termination, very rare, but this does come up, you want to document in your files why you fired the person. Or what to do when the relationship ends, the breakup. Wages. All right, so after you fire someone, you will need to pay the terminated employee for any wages earned. So if you fired them in the middle of the pay period, you're going to have to pay them for the work they've already done in the middle since before you fired them. Unless the company policy is different, potentially it could be required to pay for unused leave. Again, this is not probably going to apply to many agriculture producers, but this is something to consider depending on what your policies will say. And when it comes to equipment and tools, you want to make sure your former employee returns any tools and equipment they might have. And you want to try to develop inventory and checkout procedures. We know this takes time, but you probably want your equipment and tools back. So whether that means somehow labeling tools or some other form of inventory, try to make sure that you get those tools back and instill those practices as soon as they are hired. And it can be as simple as keeping files on serial numbers of equipment, taking photos of tools. We all have cameras on our phones these days, so that's easy to do, or using other ways to indicate you own those specific items. Locks and passwords. You want to remember to change the locks to areas the former employee might have had keys to, because it may be that you never get those keys back. So it might be that you have to change those locks. Change passwords to any accounts the former employee may have had access to, or any of the computers on your farm they may have had access to. So before the emergency, bad actors will slip through the cracks. Even if you do all of these things that we've been talking about today, what else can you do? Put together a response team. So an attorney, a vet, a media person. You may know someone in town. You may already have an attorney that you can kind of say, hey, can I call you in case this happens? If you have a vet, they already might have had to deal with something like this. So you just want to put them on notice that, hey, I'm going to call you if I need you. And make sure you have that team already written down, that you know the plan of action when something is going to go wrong. Identify who should be involved and make assignments clear. So appoint a spokesperson, ideally with media training. And that may not be you, the owner or the manager. It may be a family member or another employee who just does better with talking to the public. And then have a written communications policy in place. So who's going to talk to who? Should all employees be able to talk to the media? You probably don't want them talking to the media if you're trying to handle this in-house and have basically a singular message if you have to talk to the media. Immediately send a spoliation letter to keep the entire video. So a lot of the videos that are released are actually clipped. They may be hours and hours and hours long. The ones that are released are like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes. So they clip them down so they don't actually tell the whole story. So what the spoliation letter does is to make sure that all footage is kept for the issue when you have to go to trial or when you have to defend yourself. So you can say this doesn't happen, this was in conjunction with this, or this is why this happened. Even if it's, it may not be something that you want to actually defend, but just in case, you want to make sure the entire video is kept. Seek injunction from video being played. As soon as it goes up on YouTube, you want to make sure it stops. Take swift action to terminate employees who acted improperly, which our farmer in the hypothetical did. He immediately fired those employees, and that's one of the best things you can do as an employer, a farm operator, is just to make sure those bad actors are gone. So from the horse's mouth, build goodwill in your community before this occurs. Hire a media firm and ensure spokespersons have media training, which again may not be possible, but a lot of industry groups have this kind of help. So if you're part of an industry group or you know your industry group, call them up and they might have some people that you're able to talk to that can help you with that. Invest in background checks on new hires. Again, the ones I showed you today were free background checks, but there are actually some that you can log into and pay $20 for, and they can give you extensive background. So $20 isn't a whole lot to invest if you're looking to have this person on for a very long time, or you're just looking to protect yourself in general. Write down every policy, procedure, and best practices you have, and again, make sure you follow all of those practices, and then increase transparency. So I had a question not too long ago about there was a farmer and he has basically a bunch of houses being built not too far from him, and a lot of the times the families walk over to the farm and he doesn't really wanting them to walk on the farm without his invitation, but he wants to still be friendly with them. So there's ideas of, create the relationships with your neighbors, invite them over on a Saturday when you can show them around, or a certain time of day. You can come over at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday and I will show you around. I want you to see our place. I want us to be friends. I'm a friendly person. Just don't come on here without my permission, things like that. So there are ways to, again, increase that transparency and increase those good relationships within your community. So to wrap it up, developing hiring practices is not easy, and I hope I didn't overwhelm you today. There's just a lot to go over, a lot to consider. Need to do background checks to ensure you don't hire bad actors, whether that's the free ones I went over today or ones that you invest in, and be on the lookout for warning signs. And we went over a list of them, but also trust your gut. If you feel something's wrong or not right there, then you're probably right. So don't ignore that feeling. Develop employee handbooks and guidelines and stick to those guidelines and provide trainings. Again, whatever that means for your operation. Whatever time of day, whatever time of year, just make sure you're doing them and then everyone knows the rules and policies that's expected of them. Monitor employees to ensure they're not abusing animals, and fire and discipline anyone who does. And consider developing a response team to help you quickly respond to abuse claims. Remember, the goal is to be on the offensive, proactive, so everything we talked about with hiring and firing, and then the defensive and reactive, having that team ready to go.
Thank you for watching our archived presentation of our Wednesday webinar. If you would like to see more archived Wednesday webinars, please visit our YouTube channel. Or to find a schedule of upcoming live webinars, visit our website.